Spring Split champions!
3 rookies prove themselves worthy of the top 4 in the EU LCS. A double kill from Perks! This guy is a madman! He can do it! Oh, Memento! You beautiful man!
Yes, the Quadra! Gotta be a pacer for Kobe!
It's time to find out who will rise. This is the EU LCS. Welcome to week 8 of the EU LCS summer split with only 4 games left for each team. We've got a massive change for tonight. Reckless is back on Fnatic's lineup, and that is, of course, our top story for Ready Check. I'm EpicSkillshot supporter, kicking off the day with Christiander Frierson and Martin Deficio. Lunga, usually I would ask you how your day has been. Now I don't care. Reckless is back, baby.
Don't listen to that sign, Fnatic. Don't do it. Do not first pick Janna.
I'm pretty sure I saw that sign in week 1 where it said first pick the Janna, and it's back. If he does that, however, I mean, I would actually feel cheated almost. He has to play an AD carry, surely.
He has to.
Yeah, they cannot troll us to the level that Reckless comes back and then plays a mage or a support. There is other news, though, for the Unicorns of Love. Samux is back on the lineup. Jesses is coming in for Mickey X on Misfits. And for H2K, Larson and Sheriff are out. And Selfie and Shook are in. So a lot of moving around in these last couple of weeks, showing to me or signaling to me that a lot of teams are looking to make changes to get those wins on the board. What is the most shocking change to you guys?
I mean, I'm shocked by Jez's coming in for Mickey X in the bottom lane, because Hansam and Mickey X is supposed to be our best duo in the EU LCS, but clearly Misfits have been struggling recently, and they're trying to shake things up.
Yeah, that's definitely the big one for me as well. It seems like they're trading playmaking from Mickey for stability, shot calling from Jessis. I mean, he was the assistant coach of the team. He was on Fnatic last year, obviously went to Worlds. He has a lot of experience. So I want to see if they actually look better in the late game with him. Because early game, it should not be an upgrade over what Mickey brings together with Hansam.
And again, that's so interesting, knowing that, you know, Mickey X knows he's been performing pretty well for most of the split, and then he gets subbed out. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. I'm sure Moose and Justice know what they're doing, so we'll see.
Sure. I mean, it's always an awkward situation when the assistant coach ends up replacing the current player. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts to it. I think for Mickey, as long as he doesn't take it too bad, like this, from what I remember, is the first time he ever got benched. As long as he doesn't take that as, okay, I'm underperforming and everything is terrible, but he goes like, okay, the team's doing something different, it's okay, I'll be back soon, then it should be fine.
We'll see how Misfits turn out to play with Jessis in the bottom lane, but in other hot news, the teams will be playing on patch 8.15 this week, so Ender, why don't you break down the changes for us?
Yeah, so last week we got the newest patch in League of Legends 8.15, and of course, that brought in the rework of Akali. She's going to be enabled today and through the remainder of playoffs, which means we're going to be seeing some insane playmaking out of our mid laners here in the ULCS. She saw some pretty big buffs and changes to her Shroud as well as her mobility, and is all around a super exciting champion that we're certainly going to be seeing play on because of her insanely high skill cap and potential to try and carry games. But another mid laner that hasn't been around professional play for a while might be back after some changes. That's Fizz, and after some pretty massive buffs to both his scaling on his W and his ultimate, his win rate shot up through the roof. 6% in solo queue means that, well, our pro players have been trying it out, and it might come on over here into pro play. But the biggest change, holistically, of course, has to be to AD carry items. Infinity Edge, Stormrazor, and all the Zeal upgrades had their overall price reduced, meaning that you're going to hit your 3-item spike as an AD carry building these crit items 700 gold sooner. That's the equivalent of farming for 3 minutes. That is a very large buff to the time at which you can pick up those 3 core items, and I think we're going to be seeing a little bit more from these pro teams.
Yeah, Ender, is this the big return of the AD carries then?
So I'm holding my horses in just a little bit. We're still going to see mages, but definitely a lot of these players like Reckless, like Steelback, that have been sticking on these marksmen who like to play them are going to love this patch.
To show other teams that might be heavily influenced by the changes?
If we actually get to see more crit late game AD carries, I would say Splice with Copy. They only really win in the late game.
Stall it out as long as you can.
That's kind of the only thing they have going for them. And Copy was a great, late game AD carry in the past, where you can then say, okay, if it actually goes this direction, you suddenly look at teams like G2 who might not benefit too much because obviously Yanan has benefited a lot from mages specifically or utility AD carries. But I honestly don't think this patch changes too many things. We're still going to see Jhin, Xayah, these kind of picks, and not like the full late game AD carries. And of course, still a lot of mages.
Yeah, and even though the prices got reduced on the items, you have to look at specifically Infinity Edge. Gold went down a lot, but so did the efficiency of the item. It lost 10 AD just flat off the build, and then also some of that true damage conversion whenever you do get a crit. So the items are overall weaker for these carries late game.
Also ban Akali every single solo queue game. Never let her open. She's really strong.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself as well. We'll see what kind of changes and what kind of impact the patch will have on the league as we're counting down towards week 8 of the summer split. That means there are only 4 games left for each team to make it to playoffs or to lock themselves in, excluding tiebreakers, in the eventual spot. Now, when we look at the top of the tables, this is where it really piques my interest. Fnatic and Misfits have the shared first place, but a lot of teams under them can get that first round bye if they get place 1 or 2.
Yeah, I really don't think our top 2 teams are very clear at the moment. It's just one game separating Fnatic Misfits from those 3 teams underneath it, Schalke, G2, and Vitality. And specifically for Vitality, I want to be able to look at their actual upcoming matches because just to explain this a little bit, all these highlighted matches, the yellow highlight, those are teams that are within 1 win of them in the standings. And these numbers over on the right is the combined record of these teams that you're going to be playing against. So you look at a team like Schalke, who's just one game under first place. They play Vitality today. That's their hardest match left remaining in the split. And if they can win that, it's looking really good to try and get into play.
It's very interesting looking at all those teams and the battle for 1 and 2. For me, also G2 Esports, who have a respectively hard route in the next couple of weeks in comparison rather to the other teams.
Yeah, I think with G2, they're looking at 2 easy games and then 2 really hard games. And especially looking at the Misfits one tomorrow match of the week, like if you lose that all of a sudden, you might actually drop even further down the standings. Because that's the interesting thing here. It's no longer a top 2 as you highlighted. It's a top 5 right now. And if you drop one game, you might suddenly be out of the race for number 1.
Yeah, you also definitely have to feel good as a Fnatic fan here, too. You look at their combined record of teams they're playing against. It should be a lower level of competition for them to go against, and they're already tied for first, so should look good.
Best scheduled.
On top of that, under that battle for the bye, we also have the playoffs not completely locked in. Giants is one of the teams we're looking at as making that possible miracle run after going 2-0 last week, and that's why I want to put the attention on the individuals that we're expecting to carry their respective teams to playoffs or to first and second place. And I think for Giants, Joko is the big guy that we're looking at.
Yeah, Joko is number 1 for this team. All the early game playmaking that comes from this roster is through Joko and him enabling his lanes, him getting his team an early lead, because typically when they don't have a successful first 15 minutes of the game, they're not finding wins.
It is pretty cool though with Giants where Joko definitely is the one to highlight, but more and more players around him also doing better, which is why even in team fights, we actually start seeing them suddenly win some games. Ruins, Rumble has been great. Steelback has been picking up kills left and right. So the Giants team is really interesting this late in the split. I just hope for them it's not too late with the surge because they have to win almost every game so far.
Also for Vitality, same interesting story, I feel. They have Kikis coming in now. Since 3 weeks, he's already won 4 games with the team. And look at that pose. The man exudes confidence.
I mean, in his first 2 weeks, he's been the best early game jungler, I feel like, here in the LCS. He's been all over his opposition, invading, taking away camps. And then you look at his game last week, he's on Trundle level 2, ganking every single lane. He is the man that is going to take Vitality to the playoffs.
He's also the jungler.
Maybe. It's tough. It's tough. They have to play against Schalke later today.
Sure. Okay. I mean, it is likely. They have a tough schedule. There's a lot of the top matches they have to play, but obviously it's all in their hands. If they just keep performing like they're doing now, they can actually go towards even number 1. The thing about Kikis, though, real quick, is this team plays around him, which is so rare in Europe. It's so often the jungler is forced to just play around his laners. These guys are like, no, we'll push the lane so Kikis can invade. Oh, Kikis, take the kill, take the farm, you get everything. And he's obviously looking really good because he's getting so much focus towards him, and he's actually using it to win games.
He's been crushing it, but as you mentioned already, they have a matchup versus Schalke later. And when we talk about the other team that is on form, 7-1 in the second half of the split, and this guy Upset, I feel like we haven't given him a lot of credit. I also think it's understandable since he had so much hype coming into the league at the beginning of the year, but I feel he's really been carrying his weight in the last couple of weeks.
He definitely has. You know, in these games that Schalke are winning, it's because he's having really standout performances, not just on the marksman, which we really expected from him at the start of the split, but he has been willing to experiment more with these mage picks.
And that's why my eye is on him, just because I feel like he needs to take that extra step for me to really live up to the expectations that we've set and for the expectations he set for himself when he was crushing it in Challenger.
It is a very interesting thing about him because it seems to benefit him. There's less pressure on him. It's no longer about him in a late game team fight having to carry his team. That's why he made all the mistakes last split that we kept criticizing. The fact that he has less, you know, focus around him actually makes him play better. And I like what he's doing now. I like the fact that he's actually been underrated on mages, as Ender highlighted, because he can do everything just like Attila. So you never know what's going to happen in that bot lane between Schalke and Vitality.
Very good matchup that is. We've also got a crucial matchup coming up tomorrow between G2 Esports and Misfits Gaming as the top two teams they face off in our match of the week.
Misfits find the engage and they'll find the Baron too.
Sorry, my bad. I don't know. I just made the wrong calls.
This is the moment for Perks to prove he belongs amongst the best EU mid lane. Oh my god! G2 Perks steals the Baron!
Not top two teams, actually. It's third now. No, they have a shared third place with Schalke now, G2 Esports.
G2, yes. They have, sadly for them, dropped down a little notch. But, I mean, you're still in the running here. And 1 week of scrims can be all you need to suddenly bounce back and become the best team.
Yeah, and even if they are below, they want to be in that top two. Misfits doesn't want to lose that spot, and especially with the record of Misfits in the last couple of weeks, and with their substitution, they will want to win that match convincingly.
Yeah, this is very much a battle for the bye at the top of the standings right now. Only one match separating these two teams, and with the changes they're bringing in, Misfits are definitely trying to shake things
Super hype. That is tomorrow. On top of that, you can also watch the POV stream during Game 4, Misfits versus G2, and it'll be on Perks this time on twitch.tv/RiotGames too. Let's hope the curse of that
unlucky
POV
for G2, I guess.
That's rough. They're loose with these POV streams.
Well, we'll see what happens. But speaking of the top teams, we do have some very important news. It took 6 weeks, but our back-to-back MVP and Fnatic's AD carry, Rekkles, is making his return to the EU LCS. And we just wanted to underline how important both this news is, because how important Rekkles is for the team of Fnatic. He has won 3 EU LCS titles with Fnatic. He's played at 3 World Championships, and he's also led Fnatic to their first EU LCS title since 2015 against G2 in Copenhagen. Now, he received his 2nd MVP in a row in the spring sprint. It was obviously all good things for Fnatic, for Rekkles, and for Caps. Them together really made up the identity of that winning Fnatic in spring and made them hoist a cup in Copenhagen. And that is why what happened afterwards was so disappointing, I think, for a lot of fans of the team and also for Rekkles himself, because at MSI, Rekkles disappointed. He couldn't leave his mark on that tournament, and he couldn't beat the best of the best, in this case Uzi, a guy he looks up to in that semi-final versus RNG. And after that, he really never picked up. The meta changed. Meta benched himself after playing Janna and Karma in the bottom lane, and we didn't know what was going to happen to Fnatic, but here's the kicker. They were great. Bwipo played the mages to a T. They put all their resources into Caps, and that is where the question marks around the superstar AD carry Rekkles kept coming. Was he ever going to come back? Well, he is back. He is going to play for Fnatic today. And I want to know from you guys at home, if you think that Rekkles should be in or out. So you can type in chat in or out. And this is also what I want to ask my analysts, because it's not just about how good is Rekkles going to play. It's about so many more things when you look at this late season substitution.
Yeah, I mean, Fnatic are definitely looking at the long term here. What do they need to shore up their weaknesses right now? Well, bottom lane plays really aggressively and doesn't know how to slow it down. Rekkles will bring a little bit of temperament to that and also unlock these marksmen for this team to play.
Also, I want to look at just the dynamics around Bwipo top lane now. Like, is he going to be on a carry? Because they have Rekkles, and he can maybe play something like an Ashe in the bottom lane if they want to bring some CC. Or is it going to be just a tank top lane no matter who's playing, and Rekkles on the big carries where it's all about going to the bottom lane? Because that's a change then for Fnatic. They really love tank top laners and focus on mid, specifically for Caps, who's now the superstar. I feel like Rekkles kind of enters from the side and being like, wait a minute, I was a superstar. Now you are. I need to take that one back.
I mean, they much shared that superstar position together, but as you say, now that it's been Caps and Reckless has been out, the team has put every single resource into Caps Ender, so that might bring a little bit of change in the strategy for Fnatic as well.
I mean, that's what I'm sort of interested to see here is how does the game actually play out? Because when you bring in Marksman, you assume that's what Reckless is going to be playing. You think slower early games. You want to scale out, play for the team fights, very much spring split Fnatic, where Fnatic this split have been all about the early game with Brox and Hylissang's playmaking. I definitely think that with Reckless in the roster, things are going to slow down for them, and they're not going to be quite as proactive.
I wonder if Hylissang gets better or worse with this change. With Whippo, they had the advantage of picking a wave clear bot laner, so you could have a roaming support and it was really effective. With Reckless, if they're playing like a lane where, I don't know, random example, like a Zyra Khan, something that everyone plays. If they grab that, you're not really looking at the roaming sudden from Hylissang, you're actually looking for them to win the lane. And if that happens, again, I just want to see what happens to the rest of it.
So many questions. Also the dynamic of the team, because now Whippo and Soaz are sharing that top lane position again, which may have led to a couple of issues in the team as well. Who knows? A lot up on the cards. You guys are convinced, though, that Reckless should be in at this point in the split, which isn't too surprising at all. And I think we'll be following that up before Fnatic Giants as well and seeing exactly how it turns out, how that superstar AD carry
it's good he's back.
Makes his return. I think the fans are very happy, so we'll see what happens. So moving on, we talked about the new patch already, so I'm going to challenge you guys to whose build is it anyway? You'll get a build from professional play and some champions, and the job is simple. Simply combine the build with the right champion. Sounds simple enough. First up, here is build number 1. Let's take a quick look-see. We have a Shirelias, we have the Sorcerers, Dark Seal. What do we think? You have to choose between Elise, Nidalee, Taliyah, and Amumu.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Bonus points if you know who played it.
The AP Amumu we had never got this far into the game to actually build all the items.
He didn't build Shirelias.
He didn't get there, so it's not the Amumu one.
Yeah, also Nidalee definitely would not build Shirelias.
That'd be weird at least.
Yeah, I think actually Elise and Taliyah is pretty close, but I would go Elise because of the Shirelias. I think she's much more about closing the gap to land a cocoon, whereas Taliyah, you want as much AP as possible so you can just carry the game.
I'm also going Elise.
Elise? Right. I don't actually know the answer. We'll see in a second.
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess it's C9 in NALCS because I remember Blabber played it.
You couldn't be more wrong. It's actually Taliyah in the LPL.
Could have been Elise anyway. I'm with you, Ender. I'm sure we saw an Elise somewhere building this.
Yeah.
But you did have the champion right, so I think you win this one. The official thought it was Elise. Let's take a look.
Wait, he says Elise too.
I predicted Taliyah.
He did Taliyah.
No, he did not. Roll the tape, man. He definitely said Elise. And he said Blabber.
It's a conspiracy, but here are the next champions. Nasus, Darius, Aatrox, and Poppy. There we go. It's a build. We have a Mighty Trinity Force. We have a Quicksilver,
definitely be a
Mercury
Nasus
Threads.
build.
Yes.
Definitely a Nasus build.
Could also be a Darius build. Although I'm not sold by the locket.
The locket for me, when you pop Nasus ult and everything, I can see it makes sense. Also, again, you really obviously additional value. You go Trinity Force, you get your lifesteal from, or you get extra HP from the Spirit Visage. I'm saying Nasus on this one, personally.
I think I have to go Nasus too.
There is a world where it's Poppy. Because, like, I've seen some different Poppy builds.
That's true. I'm not a fan of Poppy, though, in this case, going Quicksilver Sash and the Trinity Force. I think that's a little too heavy.
There's some weird stuff.
So
I'm still going Nasus.
2 Nasus, what was actually played in the LCK for SKT, Thal with the Nasus in the jungle.
In the jungle?
Yeah, wasn't it? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, that's top laner.
My bad,
we got the Nasus. Now we both get a point.
We're all over the place. I even get points deducted because I'm giving you the wrong answers. Oh, God. You guys are too good at this. So
well,
basically,
we sucked at the first one.
Yeah. So I think we need to call in the help from the viewers as we do so often. So you guys can actually vote at home. Just type the name of the champion in chat. This is the build, and you can pick between Gnar, Aatrox, Jax, and Kennen. All right. So I want to know if they get the right choice and if you guys get it right. Or
so I'm pretty sure this is a Kennen right
I was gonna say
I'm taking it from you. I'm taking the glory because it's not Aatrox. That guy doesn't want to auto attack. Gnar maybe, but the The Bloodthirster, another one of those BL ones, is the one that sells it for me on Kennen because he wants to put a lot of sustain in his side.
The viewers seem to think that it's Aatrox. Anyone has some arguments for that?
I don't think it's Aatrox
We're
either.
on patch 8.15, guys. He doesn't auto-attack anymore.
Well, this is obviously must be an older build because we're the first one now playing on 8.15, I believe.
That's true.
But I'm like, there's so many split push Kennen builds right now, and he's played so often in all these different styles. Now, we see mostly AP Kennen, I will highlight.
We saw a very impressive one not too long ago, so maybe this gives you an indication.
A very impressive one.
Kennen?
I'm still very sure it is. Oh,
come on, take
impressive
a guess for the player.
Impact?
Yeah.
Impressive.
No.
Oh, I thought you were giving me a player clue right there.
Yeah, I am giving you a player clue, but that's not the correct player.
Impressive. No,
because this could also be an hour build, except for the PTI.
So the viewers actually say it's Kennen, and I'm going to say stop.
We're going to say Kennen
they are correct.
Nice.
It was Kennen. It was Cuvée. In fact,
oh,
yeah, I remember
it was not too long ago.
Cuvée is like the OG Kennen player.
Exactly. I believe it was just last week.
The
or
OG,
the week
what
before.
about Smeps Kennen?
Season 6 Kennen player. He brought it back.
Okay, I was about to say.
I think you guys did pretty well, but I think they were pretty straightforward. We're just used to so much craziness that it isn't too difficult for us anymore.
I would say the first time we did this, when we had all the different like mid laners with Smite and top laners with Smite, like it was all over the place. Almost impossible to 100% lock down. The only one obviously we got wrong was still the first one.
Well, you got it wrong.
I think maybe we'll need to shift it. We'll need to shift it to maybe what we build in our games.
Pick random solo queue games.
Indeed, we'll see. Well, we'll be on the lookout for more awesome builds tonight as we kick off week 8 of the summer split. Let's take a look at the schedule. As said, both important for that lock-in for playoffs as well for the top 2. And I have my eyes on that Schalke versus Vitality game, 5th game of the day.
Yes.
So important.
Schalke Vitality is definitely one of my favorite games of the week for many, many reasons. One, apparently I'm the only one holding down the Schalke 40 and everyone else is suddenly trying to go Vitality. But we are definitely going to discuss that one later. Still also the first game of the day, Splyce versus Rocket. Splyce lost to H2K last week. Rocket went 0-2. And because they're so close in the standings and they're still fighting for number 6, like if you lose here, it might be what ends the whole thing.
This is why I voted for Rocket. I believe that they can come back. I think they will take this in stride, the fact that they went 0-2, and if they had a 1-1 curse, now they can just go 0-2, 2-0, 0-2, 2-0, and also I think if Rocket wins, it means that there's a lot more possibilities for miracle runs, so I'm voting for our viewer pleasure, but not anyone, and everyone agrees. You guys are convinced that it's going to be
Definitely not convinced.
Also, the superior analyst at this point in time
Who's that?
is Verius.
Oh, that guy.
51 points, and you have 50, so.
Yeah, that's 1 point difference. And he was lucky last week.
But he agrees with everything I'm saying. So.
You know, I was going to pick Giants last week, and then I didn't. So I would have been even with him if I did. But
coulda, shoulda, man.
Me and the viewers, man, we got Schalke. Love the viewers.
How is Ender doing, by the way? Oh.
Ender is
46.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm actually 1 point behind you, so this is a bit of a
made
battle.
some bold predictions earlier on into the split, but I found out that playoffs actually count for predictions, so you better watch yourself.
And they count more, I believe, than the regular season.
You get extra points if you also predict correctly what the game score is in the end of the best of 5. So you can make
We still got a chance, Shox.
We have a chance.
I have a feeling Shox is going to win the Rocket one, though. Whenever we all pick one and Shox goes the opposite...
Why'd you predict Splyce then?
That's not analysis.
I'm just saying.
Dive into actual analysis.
Just saying.
Let's do it.
We're only 7 minutes away from Rocket versus Splyce, so we'll know who's right, but more importantly, what it means for both teams. So much is on the line, I said already. Rocket is 1 win behind Splyce, and Splyce currently hold the last playoffs spot. But the big question is, how will Rocket bounce back from last week when they've gone 1-1 every single week, and then it seems like they collapsed in week 7 and went 0-2.
Yeah, it's tough because I actually had faith in this team for a really long time, and they kept going 1-1, 1-1, 1-1. Now, they probably need a 2-0 week because they need to displace Splyce as that 6th seed to try and eke their way into playoffs.
Also for tiebreaker reasons. If they lose, they're down 2-0 to Splyce, and then it gets really, really difficult. But I think from last week, like...
Soundtrack is very happy for what
it
we're
is very happy
showing.
for what we're seeing. This is obviously... we have to remember with Rocket, like, both games were super winnable.
Yeah.
Like, they got to late game, and some of them even got the advantage. You know, the Schalke game was a big one for them. They bounced back. First successful late game we get from these guys. And then at the Elder Drake, everything falls flat on the ground, and they lose. That's obviously why they look so destroyed. I hope they spend the week trying to analyze, okay, what could we have done different late game? And they can go in and show us something different now. Or just go back to what worked. Full early game aggression.
And momentum-wise, they just can't arrive at the studio today feeling this and remembering those losses because they can do better and they need to do better today because if they lose, it is almost impossible for them to make playoffs.
And I guarantee you after they lost the games last week, they felt horrible, but then they watched Splice lose to H2K and they realized there's still hope. It does not matter that there's 5 teams sitting with 9 and 10 wins because all you need if you're Rocket is the playoff spot. So you're looking at the 7-7, 1 win ahead of you, losing to H2K, also, you know, trending downwards based on that game. If you're Rocket, you're definitely not going in here believing you can't beat Splice.
They need to bounce back, and I think they believe that they can beat Splice, but we also caught up with Rocket's coach Freddy122 earlier, so let's take a look.
Thank you very much, Shox, and thank you, Freddy, for joining me. Now you guys are looking to bounce back from last week. You're aiming for the last playoff spot, so what is Rocket's mindset coming into week 8?
Our mindset this week, we had a long talk after what happened last week. We discussed the implications of our results and what we had to do this week. So we're just coming in with a fresh mindset. We know that this is a very important game, and we try to take the pressure off. But there's no sugarcoating it. Today we have to win. We've done everything we can to prepare for this game.
Can we talk a bit more about last week? Because I saw some of your players looked truly heartbroken, especially after Friday's game. So what did you do to cheer them up?
Yeah, I mean, for a bit of context, we've improved so much over this year. We had no expectations at the start of the year. This split, we came in with a lot of expectations, and now we felt like we kind of threw that away in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, we're just looking today to remedy that, and yeah, that's all really. It's all about today's performance.
Yeah, and you're about to face Splice in what could be the most important game of your year and of the split. So what's the angle of approach here?
I mean, Splice actually a very similar team to us, I think, in the way they approach the game and the champions they pick. So going into this game, I think both teams probably have a good idea of what is going to be picked. So we've just worked on what we think our strengths are. We're picking what we're comfortable with, and as I said, it's all about the performance today from that point on.
Yeah, and I wish you a good luck on this one. Thank you very much again for joining me before your game. Now, I also took some time to talk to Splice's coaching staff about the upcoming games. So they should be able to take down Rocket, as they say, but as per usual, their biggest enemy is themselves. Now back to you, Shox.
There we go, a lot of good information. I also really feel with Freddy. You see, when he was thinking back to last week, he also feels like they made such a big mistake and they hope they can make up for that today.
I absolutely love the approach they had coming into the year, saying we don't expect too much, but then after a successful spring split, they actually are like, hey, we can do something in summer. We can fight for more than just a quarterfinal. We want to go further. They're suddenly looking at Worlds as a potential thing. And then you have this kind of weekend where you lose both your games and you might not even make playoffs. Like, it's such a roller coaster of emotions for still a very young team.
It is. And similarly for Splice, what Laura said there, they said their biggest enemy is themselves, Ender. And this is where they have to be their biggest friend, because they need to pick up those wins to not only lock playoffs for Splice, but hopefully aim a bit higher in the standings as well.
Exactly. This is a team that very much needs to take some of the changes on 8-15, let Kabe get into the later stages of the game. They can't lose too hard early on, otherwise they really struggle to find their way back in.
You talk about Copy, what else are the win conditions? Copy? Carbon copy of his great Jin performance is what Kabe should do, but what are the other win conditions for Splice?
Yeah, so for Splice, I was looking at it, and I think that they need to draft O'Dwamne, a very strong split pusher, and play around him later on in the game in the side lanes. Because watching Rocket's game last week against Giants, they really struggled to shut down a strong split push from Betsy. And I think for Splice, O'Dwamne is that player that they can put the resources into and try to play around, tug at the strings, and try to abuse the macro game of Rocket.
Could also give them a lane to play around in the early game, which is something they tend to kind of lack. It can be very passive when you watch a Splice game because they don't have these key openings that they're always aiming for.
So when we look at Rocket and when we know the strengths and so also what Splice has to patch up, what is Rocket's game plan?
Well, you said, you know, get O'Dwamne on a split push and he has to win. I think for Rocket is actually try and shut down O'Dwamne because he's a player, when you gank him, who's been very open to give up a lot of kills. And I think with Memento and Prophet, you have a combination on the side of Rocket that can get ahead early game, that can shut down an enemy top laner. And when Prophet is ahead, he's really good at snowballing that advantage to the rest of the team. He is the guy who calls all the big shots. shots when it comes to moving around the map. And that hopefully means you finish the game before you go late game. Bottom line, that's important. Do not go late game if you're Rocket.
Why do you not trust in them?
You are a weaker late game team than Splice. You showed last weekend what happened when you go late game is you drop the ball at the key moments. I think they need to snowball early, fast, and quick. Don't go towards late game.
Alrighty, let's see what happens. Majorly important game for Splice and Rocket. They're fighting tooth and nail to secure a playoff spot. Let's see who takes the win today.